we're back. It's 12:03. Sorry about the 3 minutes late start. It's been a bit of a hectic morning, to say the least. But so here we are, Run Chat Live episode 36. Of course, with a new unique fact that we've just done the One Chat Live International Running Conference in Brighton, like 3 days ago, Wednesday and Thursday. So yeah, I'm still a bit dazed and confused from it, to tell you the truth. It's like been a bit of an adrenaline dump. People have been kind of thanking me for putting it together, which is great, and the feedback has been immense from speakers and attendees. And I was kind of taking it with a pinch of salt, like I didn't really do that much. But now I realise that I did do an awful lot. I think my body's going, okay, you need to rest. So I might be a bit dazed and confused today, but that's fine, because that's why I've brought along right-hand man Mike James, the endurance physio, because if I do go into a little bit of a lapse, he'll be able to take over, I'm sure. I might even just go back to bed. But yeah, so as I said on the little Facebook Live I did earlier on, we're going to basically dissect the conference, let you know who the speakers were, what they talked about, have a little bit of a commentary on that with myself and Mike. And then have a little brief chat about how we're going to keep this impetus going. I mean, the bond I felt with the 70 or 80 people out there and the virtual listeners watching the recording and everything has been huge. I don't want to lose that. It was just amazing, the questions and the discussions, and it was all done cordially. There's some great debates about fascia and mechanisms of action, and it was all just done in such good faith. It was everything that's good about communication, which sometimes we lose with Twitter and Facebook and all that. So anyway, that's the idea. Before I do that, let me just bring up. Let's go. Obviously, people who are watching the or listening to the podcast, you won't see any images we've got on here today. So we'll try and remind each other to mention that, so you're not just thinking, what are they looking at on the screen? But as always, I need to say thank you to the Brighton Beard Company, who were kind enough to give us some of their Alfriston balm and oil, which just drives me crazy, and I need to get some more of it. We put that out for a little raffle, and obviously, and it wasn't a fix, I promise you, I've never heard such ooh from the audience as I pulled from behind me. You can watch the video on the live recordings. I pulled a business card out the back of this big tab. I wasn't looking, and obviously it turned out to be none other than Tom Goom running physio. Of course it was, of all the people in the room. But there's yeah, and so that was great, because he has got a beard, and he's already tweeted the fact that he's in love with it as well. So it was great to see Tom along there. But anyway, I can see Mike's getting a little bit restless downstairs, so I think what we'll do is we'll bring Mike up, and then we'll start off with a chat. So let's give him a little 5-second countdown. James, how are you, mate?
I'm good, buddy. Afternoon, everybody listening.
Do you feel different now that we've actually hugged it out and sort of shaken hands and met each other face to face, or is it same?
There's no going back anymore. That's it.
It's true, isn't it? Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Imprinted.
There was quite a lot of blues afterwards. I was quite surprised. A few people like Ian and Jack, I think Jack Chew from Physio, Matt's podcast, tweeted from the NEC, I think, going, oh, it's just not the same here. Where is everybody? It was really cool to see. It was quite immense, wasn't it? Meeting some amazing people.
It was. There's what the internet and social media has done for us as an industry is fantastic, but nothing beats skin in the game, shaking hands with people, sharing a beer, breaking bread, that side of it, both delegates and speakers together. And yeah, I think that was the magic of it. It was meeting people that you've sort of known for so long, some more than others, and realizing that, thankfully, in today's world, these are just as nice in the flesh as you expected and hoped they would be. There was no letdown across any side of it.
It's true. I mean, I remember being in the midst of it, and I'd met quite a few of the speakers, and then suddenly where the refreshments were, I turned around and almost kind of walked straight into Chris Johnson. And for a second I just went, oh yeah, well, mate, nice to see you. And then I thought, it's Chris, he's here in the flesh in front of me. It was like I've already met him before in person, and that's kind of scared me, because it's sometimes we think that the virtual reality is enough and that you have met someone, but you haven't met someone until you meet them face to face, and you share some common space with them. So just saying hi to Chris Kitson up in the room. Hey up, boys. It was lovely to see Chris. I'm going to get Chris along, definitely. It's one of my things I wrote down for 2020. I'm always singing Chris's praises as somebody who's the new breed of therapist, and I love what he's doing with the Movement Hub. And I love the stuff he posts. It's just real people doing step up and box jumps and plyometrics, and just really showing what I think the future of healthcare and running care is. So Chris, keep November, October 2023. Right, let's bring up then the talks. I was up to about 1 o'clock this morning, just splitting them down into bits and bobs. So let's bring some of them up. For those who listen to the podcast, I will say what's coming up on the screen. Basically, we're just going to go through the presenters one by one and just have a little chat about how we felt. There's a nice picture there, which is on screen, of me. The first thing I did with Jack from Physio Podcast when we were doing the virtual was did a little chat and welcome the people. And those of you watching can see on the screen my face. My head was I got such huge butterflies that morning, because suddenly it wasn't just me speaking at someone else's conference. It was like, oh, geez, this is all down to me now. If it works, then great. If it doesn't, then I'm the one who's responsible. So that's a classic picture of me just feeling a little bit, is this going to work? But it all went out fine. And thanks to the Physio Podcast team and Jack March and Jack Chu for making it flow so seamlessly. And the recording in the video room is still there, which people can get access to just by emailing me. There is a charge. But if you were an attendee and you want to see it and look back at some of the presentations, all of them, and download them, then it's only 35 quid or something. If you were an attendee, then it's 175, but 125 if you email me before the 5th. So you've got a couple of days to get that offer. But it all started, and first man up, after I did a little bit of introduction, was none other than Mr. Chu, Jack Chu, who I always wanted to be the opener, because he kind of symbolizes, he symbolizes change for our industry a lot, isn't he? He is the mouth behind the mic. Jack's obviously got the big R's, the reform of MSK. He had the concert the week before. He had the conference the week before us up in Manchester. It was amazing, all talking about proper changes which him and his team are trying to put through by going to the Houses of Parliament and all manifestos and things. So it was an honour to have Jack fresh from that, to try and remind people how, even though we think we're evidence-based, it's easy for excuses to come up through. It's easy for us to start slipping back into our old ways, and not necessarily being as evidence-based as we think, and Jack came up with a huge number of great reasons. It was a real wake-up thing and a nice introduction to the course. Ian was next. Ian Griffiths was next. I introduced him as my go-to sports podiatrist, much to the tuts of Simon Bartold, who was sitting in the front. But Simon, you're in Australia, in Adelaide, you're not as I can't as easily refer people to you as I can to Ian. But and Ian was fantastic as well. He gave a talk on foot orthosis, wading through the misinformation. Although he did change it because he ran a little competition, and one of his followers decided to change it to foot orthosis straight talking, which was an absolutely hilarious podiatrist pun, which all the podiatrists at the conference got, and I don't think many of the physios actually got. But anyway, so Ian was up there, and Ian, in his beautiful way, actually managed to break down physics and the reasons how kinetics can change and kinematics don't. He managed to break that down using analogies like the seesaw one was one that stayed in my mind, because he was explaining how, imagine you've got one person on a seesaw, okay, and so one of the ends that they're seated on is obviously down in contact with the ground. If another two people get on that same end, the kinematics hasn't changed, but obviously the kinetics, as in the strain that seesaw is actually physically under now, has changed hugely. And that was a great way of showing how the role of orthosis is very much more to do than we previously thought, with the changes in kinetics, the changes in moments, rather than always looking to change the kinematics. And basically a lot of his presentation was worked around helping us understand that and the implications for not just orthoses, but also for footwear as well. So it was a fantastic presentation, done as always in Ian's humorous and just so simple, just easy to understand style. This is why I love Podchat Live. If you want another podcast to listen to, then make sure you subscribe to Podchat Live with Ian and Craig. That's one you should definitely listen to. Okay, right. So moving on from Ian, what was next? We had JF Esculier came on. Yeah, there's a huge lag. Yes, thanks, Andrew, for confirming that. I always think it's me. I can't help it. I'm a bloke. It's me. It's not you, it's me. But yeah, okay, we'll crack on. Sorry about that. Mike and Wales are obviously still recovering from the effect of the rugby. They're just still 20 seconds behind. They just can't accept it. But anyway, let's crack on. So I will edit this for the podcast. Right, JF Esculier, the first of our international speakers from Vancouver in Canada. Thanks, Terry. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, so it's very exciting. I mean, I was happy to have obviously all speakers there, and the content from all was amazing, but it was extra exciting, like I've already alluded to, having people traveling like JF all the way from Vancouver, and giving myself a chance to meet him and the other speakers, which was so emotional, but also the delegates in the room. I mean, it's not every day you get to see JF in Brighton. So JF had a chat about what's the best clinical approach for runners with knee pain. It was, again, a fantastic talk. He broke it down, again, that it was the simplicity of it. And that was one of the kind of conscious goals of the conference. It was to make sure that clinicians could understand it, but the kind of 10 or so runners we had at the conference as well understand it. So we can call things patellofemoral pain. We can call it anterior patellofemoral pain and posterior and median and lateral, but why not in a conference just call it knee pain at the front of the kneecap, back of the kneecap, inner leg, outer leg? You know, there is that thing where clinicians overcomplicate stuff with runners and they don't even know they're doing it. We need to have the ability to switch. If we're discussing a paper or something just between ourselves, or filling out a patient sheet with the idea that someone might be taking over, then great, use the terminology, that's what's there. But when it comes to talking to the patient, we need to have that their language. And when I say their language, we need to be able, that's the language of that individual in front of us. Okay, some patients might be equipped to actually speak the lingo. Others might not, and they might need you to break it down into reductionist and very simplified and maybe not 100% accurate, but something they can take away and work with. So, for me, JF's presentation was all about that. It was a fantastic look at patellofemoral pain, or knee pain, as we shall now call it, with some great use of slides, and the audience was very much captivated. And it was wonderful to see. And of course, it was all done in a French accent as well, which, just draws everyone in, let's face it. We then had Paul Westwood up. So we moved back to the UK, to the Midlands. And we had Paul, who works these days primarily with the Army. But he's got a huge, massive history of working with triathletes. Some people were quite amazed when they had a look at his kind of CV of who he's worked with, particularly with, of course, Joe Filiol's Olympic team as physiotherapist and assistant coach. I mean, that on a CV speaks for itself. So yeah, huge thanks to Paul for lending us his experience. Few people were surprised. Paul is very, very evidence-based, and he dismisses a lot of stuff. He doesn't like the idea of disempowering his athletes by giving them stuff which might make them feel fragile, which might take the ability of them to self-care out of their hands. So Paul Westwood is very much on that page, which was interesting because I got a few little Facebook messages from delegates in the room, which I loved, having updates from them. It was like a secret bitching thing sometimes, or a commending thing. But yeah, it was great to hear that going on. And indeed, it started some of the controversy, which is bound to happen when you've got a room full of 70 therapists from different disciplines. So yeah, Paul was fantastic. We enjoyed that. It set the scene for often the rest of definitely set the scene for the question and answers, because a lot of the therapists in the room had questions to put to Paul. Minimal use of adjuncts. Yeah, that sums up Paul's speech. Minimal use of adjuncts. And as I introduced it, we'll get to that later on, but Paul Coker was also in the room, who was one of my favorite Physio Matters podcast episodes with the Paul against Paul, but we'll come to that when I talk about Paul. We had Izzy Moore, which was absolutely a pleasure. When it comes to research, then they don't come much bigger really than Izzy and the work she's done into gait retraining, in particular, and running form. And Izzy gave a fantastic look at the research and what we know, and more importantly, what we don't know. That was probably the highlight of Izzy's presentation and slides, is not jump to conclusions, using to the best of ability what we can do, and not looking for quick fixes was a big thing. Massive uses for gait analysis and gait retraining, but there's an awful lot of rabbit holes as well, which you can disappear down, especially with some of the great data we can get these days from ever increasing software and developments in technology. So yeah, all in the interpretation, as I've always said with gait analysis. And a massive treat for anybody to see Izzy. She doesn't do a lot of conferences, so it was an absolute honor and pleasure to have Izzy Moore up there on the stage. It was fantastic. We then came to the question time, which was basically, for those of you who weren't there, it was 10 of the speakers plus Jess from Run 3D. She came up as well to join us. Outside, I should mention, actually, the exhibitors were Run 3D and Sports Injury Fix with Malcolm and Tom, and then Ken and Jess with Run 3D. And what great exhibitors. I mean, they didn't just appear. They were chosen for the reason, because I love the way they're big evidence-based followers. Run 3D seems to be a very successful piece of software, which is entering a lot of clinics over the UK. Personally, I use Motion Metrics. I did try and get the boys down from Mars Systems, but they're busy developing something which is about to explode onto the market. So it was a bad time for them. It's a shame. I'd love to have seen Richard Felton and John Hedges down, but they just sadly couldn't make it. I should make it clear that I don't actually use Run 3D. I use Motion Metrics. Maybe in future we'll get a podcast with Rich or John to chat us through that. I still love the system, but on the day it was Run 3D, and it was all about them. And there's some fantastic gait analysis going on with them in the exhibitor stand. But yeah, with the speaker time, the question time was, I think it went well. I was a bit worried, but there were some brilliant questions between the speakers, between the audience. We had questions coming from the virtual listeners and from the floor, and I think it worked pretty well. It was nice to jump backwards and forwards between the speakers and the floor, and we did 2 of them, one on Wednesday and one on Thursday. The audience were engaged, which is what it's all about, and there was some good debate communication. We had some lunch. There's a nice shot for those of you who are actually watching. There's a nice shot of the speakers. Let's blow that up. That was amazing for me. I was like, my job is done. My life is nearly complete. Looking around the table there, you got Tom Goom and Jack March and Jack Chu, Paul Westwood, Mike James, Ian Griffiths, Derek Griffin, Simon Bartold, JF Esculier, Christopher Johnson, George Parks from Run Beyond Kenya, Paul Coker, and left-hand man, Craig Pooley, who was there helping the event run smoothly, and then my big face at the end. What a lunch, what a time that was. I couldn't believe it. My favorite bistro, Monch 2, which is my office for work just around the corner. That picture was just amazing. So that's we had the social in the evening as well at Las Iguanas. I'm going to bring Mike up in a second if he's listening once we get to day 2. So yeah, Las Iguanas, big shout out to them for helping us host the evening. In the end, there was about 60 people there all together with the speakers. And we had some great times out there. Tom Goom was there, Jack and Jack March. It was, some lovely people from all across, just conversing and having fun. There's Mike and Tom Goom sharing a whiskey, which they promised they were going to do. Just lost Mike again. There's a nice picture up there. If you listen to podcasts, do try and have a look at the YouTube video, which will go up as well. We've got a lovely photo there of JF Esculier and Christopher Johnson, Tom Goom and Derek Griffin. What a team. Jeez. Even looking at that now, it gives me goosebumps. But anyway, on to day 2. Mike, if you're hearing me, then let's get you back and let's put that camera back on. I'm going to start talking about day 2. Mike's ready to join your broadcast. Let's see if I can bring him up. Let's bring Mike up. Here we go. Good afternoon, Wales.
Hello. Is
that wow.
Better?
Jeez, what did you do? Have you left? Have you moved? Did you cross the border?
I just quickly messaged Tom Jones, who normally presses reset on Wales. Get the president of Wales to reset everything, and we're all right again. Apologies to everyone listening.
I'm pleased. That's fine, mate. It's okay. It did make me laugh where we're talking about technology bringing us together. Not in Wales, no, not quite. No. Anyway, so you've joined us at a nice time. I'm on day 2 now. I did
Okay.
have a picture of you. Actually, let's just talk us through the emotion of this picture here. Where was it? There we go. How is that? Because your face speaks 100 words. Can
So
you see that?
so there's half of that is because Tom and I for a long time have been trying to catch up for a wee dram, and he was literally teaching about 10 miles away from me about a year ago, and it was when we had the heavy snow and we missed each other. But also it's just in the middle when Jack Chew is off on his story about zebras and mosquitoes. So I think I'm still reeling from that.
Oh yeah, I remember I did put a video. I tried to record that. There's about 10 of us around the table, and Jack, I was sure he was drunk. I thought that's why I was recording it. I really thought he'd had a drink, but he's not drinking it now, is he? Because because Charlotte is about to drop twins. So he wasn't drunk. He was just off on a Jack tangent.
He was Jack being Jack. That's it.
It's amazing. What a guy. So anyway, yeah, it was a great social. It was wonderful. It all worked out well. Right, let's get to day 2. So Simon Bartold, who again, international speaker, so excited along with JF Christopher Johnson to actually get in my hometown of Brighton. And it was his birthday as well, of course, wasn't it? Which was nice because we gave him a birthday cake and all that, which I think went quite well. But yeah, Simon, for you, somebody you want to see in the past for a while?
Absolutely. You know, through every stage, I think there's very few people I can say this about, but through every stage of my career, whether I was a student or ever since, there's very few people that I continue to go back to because they keep churning out stuff that's relevant and applicable. And again, you know, a real titan and legend of the industry. And the stuff he was telling us about was just mind blowing. People who are allegedly in the know, and it was blowing our brains, some of this stuff about the manufacturing of footwear.
It was, and it was really, because one thing again I was worried about the conference was it was going to be, and sometimes on social media this happens, it was like, well, that's not true, that's not evidence-based, we don't do that, forget needles, forget this, forget that. And it's like, okay, it gets a bit, what are we going to do? What is our future? Are we just going to all just say have these exercises and go home? And of course it's not that at all. And for me, when Simon started with day 2 with what he was talking about, the future of the shoe industry, with his comments on what we will be able to do and where we will be in 5 years, and like grabbing a prototype, which he says you're not allowed to actually see this yet, so just pretend you haven't seen it. And just, he's such a man in the middle of the future of shoes. It was just so encouraging and positive to hear what we do know, what we can do, how we can move with the times. So yeah, it was fantastic and such a great speaker as well. And there's something about, I mean, I'm one for accents, you know that. Most of my friendship with you is because I love the way you talk. I think most relationships, that's an important factor. But with Simon, again, the whole Aussie accent, I compared him to Lorimer Moseley. Is that unfair on Lorimer, or do you think there's that Aussie thing going on?
No, I think they shop in the same shirt shop as well.
That's true. They've got a similar style. Yeah, Simon's shoes. I just kept thinking, now who was it? I can't remember. Somebody said it's like the Ricky Gervais, wasn't it? You can still get them. You can still find them with his cowboy boots. I think it was Ian Griffiths, obviously, with that sense of humour. But yeah, it was a great talk, and I loved what he had mentioned. The thing which stood out for me was the environment. He suddenly threw in that, wasn't it? Considerations about the environment. Do you remember those photos and what he was talking about?
Yeah, and social responsibility and environmental responsibility is something that seems to really crop up in most businesses these days. And effectively, when you understand the actual scale and how immense the scale of shoe production is, then the next thing that some of us don't realize on a conscious level is that, well, what happens to all these shoes when people stop using them? So when he was telling us about the actual carbon footprint of the shoe industry, and then what the shoe industry is trying to do to change it, crazy innovations.
Yeah, it was mad. I can't remember the exact numbers now, but he was talking about how many shoes were produced. I think in the case of Nike, every minute or something. It was just some ridiculous number.
Yeah,
and of course, they've got to go somewhere.
Yeah, we were talking millions and millions and millions. And what are we going to do with them?
Exactly. He had some great photos. I haven't actually looked out yet, but I remember telling my wife yesterday about, I haven't looked it up yet, but suddenly somebody was talking about a Belgian producing a shoe made out of potato or something. Did you read that?
I think that's what Simon was alluding to with the prototype that he brought. And I think that was from hockey. But effectively, people are looking at using starches from vegetables and potatoes that effectively means, and I'm probably slaughtering what he really meant here, but my interpretation was effectively when you finished with your shoes, we're going to start planting them in the ground and letting them degrade and hopefully spawn new vegetables.
Pretty incredible. Yeah, pretty incredible. Look at him. Look at that photo, that style. Oh, definitely the most stylish man. And to think that on that day he was 82 years old, it's quite incredible that he's still standing up without any support. We can't see the support. Yeah, so Simon, brilliant, all the way from Adelaide, absolutely immense, and so much fun chatting to him back in the hotel as well. Absolutely awesome. What a great start today too. Yeah, well, there's a few slides there. Who do we have next? Oh, Coca. Yeah, this I compared a few times. I don't know how it was for you, but for a few times for me, it was like I was watching Lost, the first season, where I watched one episode and it's like late at night and you think, I'm just going to watch one, then I've got to get up tomorrow. And then you finish on that cliffhanger and then another one starts and it's two. Or like 24, Keith Sutherland. That's, to me, that was what the speakers were like. I was blown away with Simon. And then suddenly it's like, right, what's next? Coca's going to come up. And after seeing Paul Westwood saying, insinuating, forget KT tape and all that, it's just, no, you're disempowering the patient. I had an idea Paul was going to have something to say about it. But what a great speaker as well, Paul, don't you think?
Absolutely. I've had the pleasure of hearing Paul a few times, and he's got that rolling Scottish accent and he's very engaging with it and quite enigmatic. But I guess what Paul's been able to do over the years is he probably understands the battles he needs to fight. So therefore he's tailored his arguments accordingly, but he's got a really nice way of almost detaching it personally. So he doesn't take offense from things. He doesn't appear to take offense from things, and he just presents his argument as a counter argument before some of the other arguments have even got to him.
Yeah, no, definitely so. I think you've just nailed it on the head. He's taken a lot of battering, or seen a lot of battering against kinesiology tape, often caused by other companies within the kinesiology tape production who have been sued appropriately for some of the claims. But rather than just going, and it's a lesson for all of us, rather than just throwing everything out, baby and bathwater, he's gone, well, hold on. Okay, maybe what you guys are talking about applies to tape as well. And he's gone down that road. And I mean, well, he's kept places I've worked in rock tape, and we specifically use rock tape because of Paul, to tell you the truth. So yeah, very powerful and a great speaker. And like you say, yeah, he's preemptive. He knows what you're going to say before you've said it. Yeah. So yeah, very good.
He had that one slide which resonated with me, and I think he labeled it skin puts.
Right.
Which that little tagline of the neurology and the sort of neurophysiological effects, and skin puts summed up is sort of mantra really, really well.
Yeah. The slide quality of all of you was just immense. It was lovely to see everyone's different way of doing it. But yeah, and on the screen now at the moment, we've got there was a hat tip to Roger Carey in Touch 2000. It was this year, wasn't it? Where he kind of suggested that the essence of the debate, for those listening to the podcast, the essence of the debate does not seem to stem from peer-reviewed academic sources. Instead, it would seem that it can be traced to social media. And, you can kind of sympathize a bit with that, can't you? It's like some of the debates are produced because of people shouting and getting polarized online. I think that was a fair comment, even though it ruffled a few feathers. But yeah. Bring that down. Yeah, so hats off to Paul. Brilliant. I'm very impressionable, but I walked away from that conference thinking I need to readdress how much I use tape and how much I consider it, and whether I do, reconsider maybe, even if it's just a little adjunct at the end or something. Then yeah, made me have a little think anyway.
I think so, and I think for the naysayers, the people who are anti a lot of the things that Paul was talking about, how he presented to everyone should at least make you go away and go, okay, I might not agree with it, or it may not be how I want to practice, but maybe I'm a little bit more forgiving for it and a little bit more considerate to why and when people might use it, and fundamentally the argument of how you use it, because that's what it all breaks down to, is what you're saying and how you're using it with the person in front of you.
Exactly. Yeah. I liked him. I can't remember exactly how he put it, but he says something like he's got a bullshit detector as well, but it's not quite dialed up so high. He's just on par as well, and he's looking out and he's trying to disprove himself and things which he says and things he believes. So he's got that detector there, but he's just dialed it down a little bit so we don't start kind of just dismissing too much. No, great speaker. Really, really enjoyed he was there. Who we got? We then had Derek. See, there we go again. Bartold and then Coke, and it's like, right. I mean, I've been to conferences before, major big conferences sometimes, and you're almost like thinking, there's going to be a few speakers where I might go out for a cup of tea during that one, and then come back halfway through because maybe I've seen them before. But I mean, I'm hoping, the impression I got was I didn't want to miss any of these. It was just bam, have some Derek Griffin live,
Yeah.
And Derek's a huge player.
Absolutely. I jotted some notes down last night ready for today, and the thing I wrote in capitals was there was no dead spots. There was no periods in that conference that were just lulled, or you were sort of not really, I can, as you say, slip out. My biggest struggle when we come on to chat about Chris was I had to go after Chris, and I was desperate to listen to him. So I'm trying to rehearse my stuff and make sure I know what I'm going to be talking about. And I didn't want to leave because Chris was talking. But Derek has an innate ability to balance a real high-level academic thought process with the application to the runner, which I think sometimes, because of the world that Derek works in that sort of persistent pain world, that I'm not sure some people understand how clever he is at doing that. Derek, obviously on social media, is very good at sharing content and the science and the research and the studies. But Derek understands how to use that when he's got a runner in front of him as well, probably because of his running background as well. And he really had and I think Derek was one of the most exciting speakers, because I guess as far as having a face and a voice on social media, he's probably more one of the quieter guys that was in the lineup. People perhaps haven't seen as much or heard as much of him. So when he came in, he was everything and more that I expected him to be. And to top it all off, I managed to survive a run with him. So
I know, that was something else as well. I was so exhausted and knew I had to be up and do things at home. I wasn't able to come out on any of the runs, but I'm glad you guys got a chance to run together. I was kind of hoping, I can admit now that Jack Chew, if you are listening to this, or you do listen to this, I worked so hard to try and make you vomit again in Brighton. When you weren't there, I was trying to get Derek and Chris to both take you out, a bit like Greg Lehman did 6 years ago when Greg came to my clinic to do his first chat in the UK. And we don't need to go down that road, but sick was included and it came out of Jack's mouth. But yeah, unfortunately, you slept through your alarm, didn't you? Damn, it's annoying when those alarms just turn themselves off during the night and you miss the runs. I hate that. But anyway, it's never happened. But yeah, I'm glad you guys got some runs as well. Just a mention from Katie Napton. It was a great 2 days. No weak speakers and great cakes. It's true. And yes, she was my mother. I came out of that beautiful person somehow. It was good catering. It was good food. People loved it. So shout out to my mum as well. Thanks, Katie. I'm glad you appreciated the food. Right, who do we had? So Derek's chat was, it was a lovely title, putting the runner back into running injuries, looking beyond biomechanics and forces. And it was everything that we thought it was going to be. It was a wonderful summary of the evidence, of not focusing just too much on the sore bit. And I think it was confirmation for a lot of people who are already on that page. Just a reminder of where we are and what we know. But it was interesting doing the Q&A. I remember you kind of picked up on it as well, where Derek was getting a little bit of a challenge about why he didn't use certain things. I think it was to do with massage, wasn't there? There was a great debate to and fro with Anna, who's a fantastic massage therapist and has got a great school as well. But yeah, Derek was basically saying, with the people who I treat, that hasn't worked. That's why I don't use it. And so he was testing me to work with the person in front of you, which is the massive message, isn't it? That's what it should say on the t-shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the assumption that we have sometimes incorrectly that, Derek may treat a runner who's come in with something acute the same as he may treat someone who's suffering with persistent pain is so wrong. It's so far from the truth. Everyone should be changing the way we practice, although we have a fundamental theme according to the person in front. And what Derek did, as all super clever people did, was he took a subject that is very science and very heavy and very difficult to understand for a lot of people, and he broke it down into a real understandable format for people to get that message.
Definitely. I think There's a picture here on the screen of Derek and Chris, which was a lovely moment, which I thought was fantastic. But yeah, of all the people who it was so important and valuable to meet in person, I think Derek was the number one. In conversations with, even amongst the speakers, it was like, I'm so glad I've got to meet and actually shake hands with Derek, because like you say, on social media, often his personality doesn't come out. You can't see people smiling on social media. You can't see people winking at you when they write something. And if you just go by the words, you create your own persona, don't you? I think for Derek, it's very easy because he is quite straight lace and he's small chunks. You often think maybe he is being a bit maybe condescending or polarized, but when you see him in person, he's smiling and he's talking again with that Irish accent. And the gestures, you realize, no, he's thinking very carefully through what he's saying and he's listening to you. He's a great listener. So I was so happy.
Griff told me a funny little line. So when Paul Coker was on, I think it was Griff said that he'd asked Derek, will his be quite confrontational and sort of controversial compared to when Paul comes on? And I think Derek just did a little smile and said, well, it can be if I want it to be. And that was the perfect summary of the person that you perhaps don't see in a rebuttal to someone's evidence that's put out there, where he just wants to counter argument with the science.
Definitely, yeah. No, it's I haven't actually spent much time online looking around because I've had so much stuff to do since I came back. But it's definitely changed. Well, I like to think I'm quite fair as well, but it's definitely reminded me to realize the limitations of Facebook and Twitter and the words. It's just words, and how you read it can be totally different to the sentiment that was behind it when it was typed out. So, yeah, it was wonderful, Derek. Thank you for reminding us all of that. It was fantastic. Right, who else did we got? Let's work through these. So, my eyesight, I'm getting old. Then, of course, once again, bam. Christopher Johnson, all the way from Seattle, came over. And Chris was a big one because it was about 2 or 3 years ago when I was chatting with Chris after doing a little web chat where he kind of said, man, we have to get together. We have to do this. And it was like, for a while we were playing around with the idea of myself going over to New York and doing something there, but with kids, he's got young kids, and so it never materialized. So Christopher actually plays a big part in making this happen, because he sowed the seed. And like all of you, though, it's someone who I really wanted to, because he's the little man from YouTube, isn't he? Basically, is that how you met him?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, he seems to just pop up anywhere you're looking for a good resource. Chris Johnson pops up. It's as simple as that. Whether it's something he's done himself or an interview he's doing with someone else. We're big in this industry for trying to advocate against having gurus. But if you need a guru in the running world, you're probably not going to go far wrong with Chris Johnson.
That's wonderfully said, Mike. You've got such a good way with words. And look at that. And look on the screen there. That's a guru picture if ever I met one. Look at that. Yeah, he's a great commander. I mean, as far as I know, Americans, although we see the rubbish films, but Americans, a lot of the time, have such a good commanding of the English language. I think the vocabulary they use is often more than ours. We don't see it so much because we're just watching trashy shows and stuff and listening to Kardashians. But the actual words which Christopher using was just so engaging, and often it manages to get a point across because he's used a word which we wouldn't normally use. But yeah, like you say, if you're going to have a guru, then make it Christopher Johnson. It was fantastic. His chat, just for those of you who didn't see the slide or can't see it because you listen to the podcast, his chat was all about orthopedic examination and physical performance tests, and he brought up some fantastically simple exercises and meaningful exercises and tests, and then the impact that has on strength training prescription. It was a fantastic presentation, and like I say, just to remind you, if you are listening to this, all these presentations are available. The stream we recorded is available on Facebook in a group, and if you're interested in watching all of the presentations, then email me. They are available. They will be coming out bit by bit as I load them onto the website if you just want to pick out a few speakers. But for the moment, like I say, before November the 5th, you can get all of the presentations here for £125. And that's like 10, 12, 14 hours worth of stuff. So you'll probably need to download it, but you can download off Facebook. I'm surprised how many people don't realize you can download videos off Facebook. You might need a third-party app if you're using a phone, but they are downloadable. So they are yours for life. But yeah, Chris, brilliant chat, brilliant person, and so happy you came over. That was a lovely intro as well. I'll just put that up as well. That made the audience just go, yeah, runners are not sensible creatures. Never has never have 5 words made more sense. So that was hilarious, a great slide. He has some great slides. I did notice a trend of just people putting up very minimalistic, the slides this year, weren't they? There was lots of just photos and kind of a lot sent through that. Apparently that's attributed to Steve Jobs, is it, or something?
I think so, yeah. But I think as well, it comes down to, if you've got something to say and something you know about something, you don't need to put a lot on the screen. They're normally cues, and you want people to pay attention to what the speaker's saying, not what's written in wordy bits on the screen. But I think, Chris, so normally when you've been to a lecture or a conference or even watched a webinar, it's all about answering that question, the so what question. So I listen to you, I watch you, but so what? What does it mean to me? And when Chris had finished, there was a bunch of therapists in the room and runners who would maybe be working with therapists that could walk out that door and apply something straight away. They could really go away and rethink how they're doing these tests and why they're doing them. Because we all moan about having limited time. And what Chris succinctly put across to everyone was, you can use that time way better than perhaps some of us are, or some of us have been. And therefore, you don't need to do this battery of tests or this blanket testing, which doesn't really give you anything at the end of it. You can employ or deploy some simple tests, which can then become exercises or guide your exercise prescription. And it was a perfect message to take away.
Definitely, yeah. Like I say, I was getting kind of messages from people in the crowds. There's kind of at least 5 or 6 people on the go texting me questions and saying, "What is this going about?" Or "This is amazing." And yeah, Chris's was a good example of. I think everybody has something you can take back to clinic, but Chris's in particular was like, right, jot this down, and people were writing loads down. It's very exciting to see. That's always a good sign. About like you say, things that can be implemented straight away as soon as you get back to clinic. It was fantastic 45 minutes spent. Right. And that was everybody, I think, wasn't it? So
that was it.
No, then we came to just as I wanted Jack to open up the show and set the scene, I needed to find somebody who was going to, after 9 fantastic speakers, it was a big responsibility, but I needed somebody who was going to put it all together and keep everybody engaged. And basically, this is the most important speaker, really, because this is the taste that's going to be on everyone's mouth when they leave the conference. So that person I wanted wasn't available. So thanks for stepping up, Mike. It was great that you could step in.
Absolutely fine. Absolutely fine.
No, mate, it was your turn to shine. How are you feeling when you took the stage after those 9 people?
I was excited. I was really excited, to be honest. The negative, or the worry about going after those 9 is, how do you live up to those 9? But actually, when they set the bar for you, then you're either going to fly over it or crash into it. And actually, the way they pitched and the way they engaged the audience just gave me a bit of a template to know how to pitch to that audience. I'm sure everyone felt the same, but actually on the stage, the lights are shining in your face and you can't really see the crowd that much. And therefore you sort of, it is a little bit different when I'm up here compared to what I thought it might be. But it was a case of just trying to do what everyone else had done and use the content to pass the message across as best you could. What I remember was, because of the light shining in my face, I apologize now. There was a lady sitting on the end about 5 rows back, and she was pretty much the only face I could make out. So I pretty much just talked to her, and I don't know whether she thought I was trying to tell her this message non-stop, but you just sort of pick someone and you zoom in on them.
That explains quite a lot. That explains those emails I got from her. Yeah, so she was a bit weirded out.
Yeah. You got emails. I've got a restraining order.
No, it's amazing, mate. As someone who was watching, it was fantastic, but I knew it was going to be. If of all the people I've probably seen in terms of footage and how they talk, and I've got to know, probably you were the sure bet, which is why I was so happy you agreed to be at the end. And the topic, for those who listen to the podcast and have no idea what is on the screen, then you closed with strength training for runners. Is it such a simple approach? Which was really great when you put it out there, because some people on Facebook were kind of saying, yes, end, one slide, end. And I was thinking, well, I don't think he's going to say, I don't think that's the answer to it. And it was a great one, because there's obviously that's probably our strongest confirmation bias, isn't it? Thinking you just need to get strong. That's as much as you need, and don't make it too complicated, and don't worry about it. But your talk obviously kept people moving backwards and forwards. And what's it going to say? There's going to be a but round the corner here. Was that kind of the intention, to not let people know from the beginning whether you were going to say yes or no?
I think probably the title gave it away, that there was probably going to be a big but in there somewhere. I think what kept people guessing is where it was going to come.
Yeah.
Exactly. And certainly, perhaps, with the little exercise videos that I put out, then most people have seen me bang on about doing strength training. So perhaps it was the fact that I was about to say there's a big but. I certainly am a big advocate for it, but I'm not a fascist about it. And I just wanted to try and put that. I wanted to use my sort of time in the trenches, so to speak, to say, I've not had success with certain people running, whether that was through my approach or because of their attitude and beliefs. And actually, you just need to think about it a little bit more. It was a nice platform for me to use that study that I chatted about to I've kept my gunpowder dry on that one for a while. I've seen a lot of people extrapolate something from a study that they shouldn't have. And I just thought, when the right time comes, which Run Chat Live presented, it'd be a good place and a good platform to give my thoughts on that.
But yes, fortunately, we got most of Mike there. It was a fantastic end to the conference. Don't forget, it's quite hard work sitting down and seeing 5 great speakers the first day, and then a great Q&A, then another 4 speakers day 2. By this time, people were kind of a little bit tired, but it was my wild card. It was the one that I knew was going to get people sitting up again and paying attention to it, because it is such an important subject that we don't kind of let our confirmation biases get the better of us. And Mike did us all very proud. And if you're looking at the screen, you can see he's got very similar guru stance to Christopher Johnson. There might have been some coaching there behind the curtains or something. But yeah, fantastic day had by all. So Mike, there it is. There's the slide with but, and it's a big but. It was brilliant. It was a great presentation. And we were all on stage for the second Q&A, which was nice because on day 2, the people on the floor were a little bit more vocal. People were ready to chat a bit more. And there was some nice, interesting debate. I thought I was going to have to kind of restrain Jack Chu for a while as he got talking to some of the podiatrists. And then, like I say, there's some fantastic debate to and fro with Derek. And all the speakers had a chance. So it was wonderful to see. There we go. So a few more slides on the screen of people engaged. Again, I talk about the speakers who were amazing, but the audience were great as well. They were so dedicated, and so I always worry about these conferences that obviously all the advertising is done. I did it all on social media, so it's kind of people who already know me or know the speakers who I value. So there's such a big danger of confirmation bias. And I was worrying that people were going to sit there going, oh, yeah, well, we know this. Yeah, I read that. Yeah, I know he's going to say that. Yeah, did I really pay for this? That sort of thing. But it wasn't like that at all. People were just enthralled to hear what they knew again, but laid out maybe in a clearer way. And also just there's so much new stuff as well there as well, different ways of looking at things. When I spoke, I will be sending out feedback forms to all the attendees. I've just got to get some time. But one of the biggest bits of feedback was just so many things to think about and take home. And I thought I understood that, and I've got to tweak this a little bit. No throwing out of the baby with the bathwater, okay? Because everyone who came here was kind of into evidence-based practice, but just kind of changing things a little bit around, looking at different ways. And it's the little changes we can make in clinic which make the huge difference. Often we're doing the same modality maybe, but by knowing how it works better, we can make it work better, which isn't my words. I think I read it on a Paul Ingram post somewhere. But yeah, that's the important thing. And that's one of the biggest kind of, if you're the sort of person who says, I don't care how it works, that's fine, then you really are limiting the efficacy of your whatever you're doing, whatever you're saying. If you know how it works, you can make it work better. Simple as that. Once you get through that, then that natural critical thinking of anything you're doing, that natural desire to second question anything you read or are told or you get about to do, will make you a better therapist. It'll make everything you do just that more accurate. We might not have all the answers yet. We certainly don't have all the answers yet, especially when it comes to working with people in pain. But every time you do manage to tweak things, because you understand a little bit more about how it might be working, then you're going to help more people out, and in our case, help more runners out. But anyway, Terry just put up there, the key learning point of the conference is that running is a high risk reward sport. The rewards of running is good for fitness, and that's all it's going to let me have, Terry. Sorry, but I do appreciate all your support, Terry. And I hear you're in the runner's zone now with Christopher Johnson, which is fantastic. What a great place to be. I did purposely kind of big that up on the day, as well as Bartold Clinical with Simon's Place is a great place to hang out as well as Sports Injury Fix and Run 3 Days. So many places. Andrew has just put you up. There's a little comment there. That's nice. Thank you, Andrew. Can't thank Matt and all the speakers and other delegates enough. And Matt's mum's meringues. Is that a euphemism? No, I hope not. She did make meringues. They were amazing. Roll in next year. Yeah, 2020. That's what I'm going to have a little chat to Mike about now and see what's going to go on there. Just a message there from Chris. I'm bringing up on the screen. Absolutely unreal couple of days, and it's given me so much to think about. Thank you so much to Matt, all of the speakers, and everyone else who made this happen. Thank you, Chris. Like I say, next year, you on the stage, mate. I need to let more people know about you. Right, whilst Mike joins us again, that was a surprise at the conference. Yeah, quite a few people said, oh, wow, your T-shirt. I want your T-shirt. Can we buy the T-shirts? Which is something that I didn't really think was going to happen. I got some for the event speakers. I'm not wearing it now, by the way. That's the T-shirt. I have made it mocked up onto a T-shirt because, yeah, you know what? If people want it, then I will make this available on my website. I've just got to sort out a few things. It's just got the logo on the front. That's not actually a photo of me. It was just something I found online, which I thought looked a bit like me. But yeah, Run Chat Live, putting the evidence back into running injury and performance. And on the back, you got the website, the podcast, sort of a pod microphone thing. These will be appearing on the website soon due to popular demand. And I'll try and keep them as cheap as possible because obviously, you know, it's great you're getting the word out there. So I'll just put them out there to cover costs and postage and packing. But yeah, they will be available soon. So make sure you head over to runchatlive.com. And like I say, it'll probably be hopefully in the next week. I'd like to think so. It depends on a few things. But yeah, they will be around. Let's get Mike back up here. Mike, you back?
I'm back.
Oh, good. Thanks, mate.
We've traced the source of the problem.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's the flood of well wishes we're sending to South Africa.
That's very good. Very good, yeah. So yeah, apparently people want the T-shirts. I'll send you a T-shirt. I expect you to do a few little Facebook.
I had my eye on one of them.
I know they've proved quite popular. I'm quite surprised by that. I don't see why people want to walk around with what looks like me on the front, but hey, that's okay. If it's spreading the word, then we can do that. Right. So chatting about the future, mate. I mean, we kind of all said, yep, 2020, we'll do it again. I think we decided we'll try and keep it the same time of year and the same kind of format so that people know that's it now, put the end of October aside. But I did get some interesting feedback. And again, I will be sending out forms for people about what to change next time. And you can be as candid as you like now, but what did you pick up that you think might be a better format, or what do you think?
I think it's tweaks. I don't think it's a better format at all. It worked brilliantly. There was a real nice reaction to when Paul Coker did his practical workshop. So that may be something with runners there to potentially do something a little bit more practical. I know we chatted about at lunch one day having little breakout sessions, little workshops. There's pros and cons to that, but it may be something worth considering. I think it's almost, I think, rather than actually what happens at next year's conference, it's what happens between now and the conference. It is making sure that people who both attended and didn't attend now continue to engage on a regular basis, who reach out to yourself and the speakers and realize that these are just normal people who are happy to give their time and whatever experience we have to you guys in whatever form you want. So this should be the start of something rather than the end of the conference. And then I guess whatever will take place and change for 2020 will probably come out in the wash over the next 12 months.
Yeah, it's very true. That's a good way of looking at it. It is what we do between now and then. I think it's just, I don't know. I find so many people, like those 70 speakers, I really want to hear about what they're doing, and I want to know about how they're putting what they heard into effect. But with Facebook and Twitter, you just suddenly disappear again, and all these algorithms, it means you only see the same people over and over again. So I would encourage, if you did go to the conference, or if you're interested in the conference, if you watched it virtually, then do try and start hanging out together in the same group. I don't know. I don't want to create another Facebook group, but just kind of get vocal and be around in Sports Injury Fix with Mike's, the Endurance Physio page. Just check in now and again, because every time you check in and we see you, then we'll just keep those same 70 names ticking over. You haven't got to follow all the time. Just once a week, pay a little visit to Mike's page, Sports Injury Fix, to Run Chat Live, to Run 3D, and just interact a little bit, because every time we see you, then we can then start messaging a little bit, PMing. So just don't let it disappear, because like Mike says, what we do next year will depend very much on how we communicate and keep things rolling between now and then. I do like the idea of breakouts. I mean, my dream was always getting runners and therapists in the same room. I've had different kind of feedback about that. Someone suggested having different rooms going on at the same time, one with runners and one with therapists, but that kind of defeats what I want One Chat Live to be about. I don't know. I like the idea of breakout sessions. Simon suggested that presentations from speakers should be shorter, with maybe more speakers. That in actual fact, 45 minutes, even with a break in between and another 45 minutes, can be quite a long time, especially for someone who's really trying to soak it all in, and maybe it's new information. So maybe kind of 25-minute presentations and a little breakout or something afterwards, doing it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see a runner on stage. I'd love to see someone telling us about their experiences, whatever pitfalls they've got and any barriers they've got, what their thoughts are of therapists as a whole who treat runners. It's not a one-way communication, it's a two-way street. And we, I learned from the other speakers, but I also learned from the conversations I had with all the runners who were attending. So getting someone like that up is always good to bounce it around, flip it upside down.
That is good. Yeah, good idea. I mean, that was the idea of the Q&A to a certain extent, was to try and get some questions from runners to the therapist on the stage. We did have like about 8-9 runners in the end, but we also had about 15 podiatrists. So it actually turned into a Q&A between podiatrists and Jack and Derek. But it was still very healthy debate. But that's, get some runners up on stage. Get some, that's good thinking. I like that. But like I say, I will be putting out feedback forms for everyone who attended and everyone who's watching the recordings. You guys will mold what happens. Right. I think, unless I'm much mistaken, we've already 10 minutes past. I'm sure you got stuff you need to do today. Is there anything, what's up for the endurance physio? Tell me what you are up to now for the next month or so.
So the next month's quite busy. I've got a couple of courses, and I fly over to the Channel Islands for a weekend to teach, and then building up to Therapy Expo end of November.
Oh yeah, of course.
And then it pretty much dies down then. So Therapy Expo. So if those who couldn't attend Run Chat Live, my talk in Therapy Expo will be very similar to the one I gave at Run Chat Live. So if you missed that and you go in there, do come along on the first day, the Wednesday, to Theatre C. I'll be chatting about that one, and then die down towards Christmas. Then, to be honest, I'm trying to get a few things in place for 2020 that'll be slightly different. So a little bit of time to digest the year and move forward. Obviously, Sports Injury Fix dominates most of my week, my sort of working day. So we're always trying to drive that forward. And then if you miss me before that, we will be at the National Running Show in January. So just picking it up again, picking the ball up again in 2020 and driving forward.
Busy man indeed, very busy. Therapy Expo. I was asked to have another chat up there, but after this as well, you've got much more stamina than me. Even though you're older than me, it's incredible. But I couldn't have done it. I would have just been wiped out. But I hope it all goes well at Therapy Expo. So that's interesting. So it'll be a very similar presentation. So people who have missed this, make sure you go and check out Mike.
I'll take a slight slant off what the messages were that we were giving to runners, and it'll be more directed, obviously, to therapists and how the messages we should be giving to runners. But fundamentally, it'll be along the same lines.
Brilliant. And then the running show in January. Wonderful. Okay, mate. Well, look, it's 1:12. Thank you so much for joining me again today, just to go through the conference and have a little dissection of what we saw and what we're going to do in future.
Yeah, my
this
pleasure.
Will be, yeah, go on.
I just wanted to take this chance on behalf of all the speakers, the delegates, everyone over Run Chat Live over 2019. None of this would have been possible without you. You're too humble to take the credit, and you like to think that we all did something for you, but you aimed for the stars and you ended up in outer space, beautiful. Mate. You put the most fantastic thing together, and there wasn't anyone who's come across Run Chat Live in whatever format isn't in a better place because of the work you're doing. So thank you, and your mum, and all the team that helped out. It was a pleasure to be involved with it.
Thank you very much. That's very kind. But yeah, okay, I did some pretty great coordinating and organizing, but ultimately it was the teamwork to everyone there. Even the IT guy was Adrian was amazing. Obviously all the speakers and the delegates turning up on time. It was I prefer to think of it as a testimony to what happens when you get a great team working together. It was amazing. And obviously my mum, she added to it. But yeah, it was a wonderful event. I mean, I expected it to be incredible, and it surpassed even that. So yeah, but yeah, thanks very much for your support as well during the times in the background, letting me know it's going to be okay. I appreciate it. And give my best to Malcolm as well. I'm looking forward to hearing developments in sports injury fix. I hear something was picked up there, which could be exciting for the future, but we won't go into that now.
Yeah, we might be going global.
Exactly. Right, dude. Okay, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to say goodbye to people on the podcast and anyone watching. So I will catch up with you very soon. I think this will officially probably be the end of season 1 of Run Chat Live. So we'll be starting with season 2, maybe with a few changes, maybe with a time change. So thank you for seeing us out, being the last speaker on season 1 of Run Chat Live. Yeah, we'll catch up very soon.
Yes, my pleasure. Take care, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mike. James, the endurance physio. What a great guy. Right, so there we go. I did, when I introduced Mike, and you'll see on the presentations if you watch the recording, yeah, I did just kind of said, as well as all the information that he gives and his fantastic endurance physio content, he's such a nice guy as well. I can't say all the speakers are, but Mike in particular stands out in the last 2 years of people who I've just met, who just is such giving, always putting out other people's information. He's a great dad. I love his posts where he's just reminding people, you know, I'm going to put my kids first. I'm not going to be around for a while, for a week or so, because it's just, you've got a balanced family life and everything. He's a wonderful father by all accounts, which is obviously a soft spot for me as well. So yeah, I do thank Mike and all the speakers. What a great bunch of people. It's been very emotional. So yeah, this will indeed, like I said, be the last episode for this season. We're going to have a little bit of a break, but then we will come back. I think it will probably be in the evenings, but I will put on, well, you can leave comments here if there's a perfect day or time which you'd like this to move to. I do want to try and make sure I'm giving people as much possibilities as, you know, to actually join us live. I think it's great to be able to interact live. That's what Run Chat Live is all about. So yeah, if you want to leave some comments, if you've got any feedback of how you'd like the format to be, then matt@runchatlive.com. If you want to get access to the recordings of the 2 days, then again, just email me, matt@runchatlive.com. And anything else you want to say, then just, yeah, keep in contact. We'll be back. I'm not quite sure how long we're going to have off, maybe a month or so. I'd like to think we'll be back before Christmas. Maybe we'll do a Christmas starter. But yeah, it's been an immense year and a bit. It's been a great conference. It's been lovely seeing all delegates and all speakers under one roof, and a really positive way to finish the year. So there we go. Right, before I start crying, I will say this is Matt Phillips, and this has been Run Chat Live. putting the evidence back into running injury and performance. Adios and see you soon. You're listening to Run Chat Live podcast, putting the evidence back into running injury and performance.